The emergency signal screamed across 12 star systems. Ambassador Keltis stood in the communication center of Velria Prime, his forearms trembling as he watched another colony world go dark on the display that made 3 worlds lost. In just 2 weeks, the Valrian Empire had ruled this sector of space for over 1,000 years. Their energy shields could stop plasma fire, their weapons could cut through solid metal like paper. Their scientists had mastered gravity manipulation and faster than light travel, but none of that mattered. Now the scroll had come. Keyless had seen the reports. The scroll were not soldiers or warriors in any tradition sense. They were a swarm, a living tide of hunger that consumed everything in its path. They arrived in organic ships that looked more like tumors than vessels. They landed in spores that rained from the sky like black snow, and when they touched ground they spread. The worst part was their adaptation. The Velrian military had tried everything. Energy weapons worked for the first hour, then the scroll developed resistant hides. Plasma fire burned them for a day, then they evolved heat-dispersing membranes, sonic weapons, radiation, chemical agents. Nothing worked for long. The scroll learned, adapted, and overcame. Keyless sent out the call for help to every species in the Galactic Council. The response was silence. Most species knew the scroll fighting them was suicide. Better to fortify your own borders and hope the swarm moved in a different direction. Then 3 days after the initial call, a response came from an unexpected source. The message was simple and direct, spoken and slightly accented. Galactic Standard. This is Captain Hanako of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. We received your distress signal. We are responding. Expect our arrival in 72 hours. Keltis felt a mix of relief and confusion. The humans, he knew of them. Of course, everyone in the council did. They were the newest members, admit. Only 40 years ago, a young species from a small blue world on the edge of civilized space, they had discovered faster than light travel. Barely a century ago, the Velrian Council of Generals gathered to discuss the human response. General Thax, the Supreme Military Commander, pulled up the data file on humanity. They are carbon-based like us, Thax said, reading the information. Average lifespan of only 80 years, no natural armor, no psionic abilities, no enhanced strength or speed. They breathe oxygen and nitrogen. They are injured easily and heal slowly. Another general spoke up. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They still use projectile weapons, actual metal bullets fired by chemical explosions. Their ships are slow. Their AI systems are basic. Keltis nodded slowly, but they responded when no one else would. We need any help we can get. One question troubles me, Thax said. Why would they help us? They barely know us. They have nothing to gain. The answer came when Captain Hanwan arrived at Velria Prime 72 hours later. Exactly as promised, her ship was ugly by Valrian standards. It was a blocky gray vessel covered in armor plating and weapon batteries. No elegant curves, no artistic design, just function and durability. It looked like it was built to take punishment and keep flying. Hana herself was small compared to the Velrians. She stood barely 1.66 m tall with dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her uniform was plain gray and black with simple rank insignia on her shoulders. She carried no visible weapons, but she moved with the calm confidence of someone who had seen combat before. Keeltis met her in the command center, with the council of generals present. Captain Quan Keltis began, "We are grateful for your response, but I must be honest with you, the Scroll are unlike any enemy you have faced. They are." "We've read your reports," Hana interrupted politely but firmly. "Parasitic bioworm, rapid adaptation, consumes organic and inorganic matter, spreads through airborne spores, currently occupying 3 of your colony worlds and approaching your core systems." Thax stepped forward, his tone skeptical. "With respect, Captain, this is a crisis that requires massive military force. How many ships are you bringing? How many soldiers?" Hana looked at the tactical display, showing the scroll advance. "We're sending 1 battalion. Approximately 800 soldiers. That should be sufficient." The room went silent. Then several generals started talking at once. Thax raised his hand for quiet. "Captain Quan," he said slowly, "there are over 1 billion scroll organisms on our colony worlds. Your sensors must be malfunctioning if you think 800 soldiers can make a difference." Hana turned to face him directly. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. "General, I understand your concern, but I assure you our assessment is accurate. 1 battalion of Terran shock troops will be enough to break the swarm on Velria Prime. Once we establish a defensive perimeter here, we can plan the liberation of your colony worlds." "This is insulting," another general muttered. "Do the humans think this is a game? Do they not understand what we face?" Keeltis noticed something about Hana. She did not react to the criticism. She did not defend herself or argue. She simply waited, hands clasped behind her back until the generals finished talking. "Ambassador," Hana said quietly, "I know this seems impossible to you. I know you are desperate, and our offer sounds too small to matter, but I need you to trust me. My people have fought enemies like the Skrull before. Different forms, different adaptations, but the same basic threat. We know how to win." "What enemies?" Keltis asked. "Your world has been at peace for decades." Hana smiled, and there was something sad in her eyes. "We have been at peace with each other for decades, Ambassador, but Earth is not a gentle world. We have parasites that can control the brains of their hosts. We have bacteria that evolve resistance to our medicines. Within months, we have viruses that kill millions and adapt to every cure we create. We have insects that consume everything in their path in swarms, numbering in the billions." She walked to the tactical display and studied the scroll positions. "And before we achieved peace, we spent 200,000 years fighting each other. We learned how to kill everything on our planet, including ourselves. The Skrull are dangerous, but they are not the first swarm humanity has faced. They will not be the last." Thax crossed his arms. "Very well, Captain, we accept your help, though I believe you underestimate the threat." "When do your troops arrive?" "They are already here," Hana said. "My battalion is in orbit now. We are ready to deploy to Velria Prime as soon as you give us landing coordinates." Keltis felt a chill run through his body. "Already here. We detected no other ships. Our troop carriers are in stealth configuration," Hana explained. "We did not want to announce our presence to the Skrull before we were ready to engage." She looked at each of the generals in turn. "Gentlemen, Ambassador, I need you to prepare for what comes next. My soldiers do not fight like you do. Our methods are not elegant. We are not concerned with honor or tradition. We are concerned with winning. When you see us fight, you may find it disturbing, but I promise you this: when we are done, the scroll will be broken. Thax gave the landing coordinates, the capital city of Velria Prime, where the scroll were launching their primary assault. Hana nodded and activated her communication device. All units, this is Quan, we have authorization. Begin deployment. Rules of engagement: unrestricted. Show them what humans do best. The response came back immediately, voices calm and professional. Copy that, Captain. Drop pods launching in 5 minutes. As Hana prepared to return to her ship, Keltis stopped her. Captain, why did your people really come? What do you gain from helping us? Hana paused at the door. When I was a child, my grandfather told me a story. He said that evil grows when good people do nothing. The scroll are evil. Ambassador, they destroy without reason, consume without purpose. My people came because it is the right thing to do, and because if we do not stop threats like this when they appear, eventually they will come to our door. She left the command center and Keltis watched her go. He did not know if 800 humans could save his people, but for the first time in weeks he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The sky above Velria Prime was burning. Sergeant Minu Park watched through the small viewport of his drop pod as the city below came into view. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. The elegant spires and crystal towers that the Velrians were so proud of were covered in black pulsing organic matter. The scroll had been busy. 30 seconds to impact, the automated voice announced. Brace for entry. Minu checked his weapon one more time. The M77 assault rifle was loaded with armor-piercing rounds. His sidearm held 40 rounds of hollow-point ammunition. Combat knife on his chest was sharp enough to cut through bone. 3 fragmentation grenades hung on his belt, along with 2 incendiary charges. He was ready. The other members of his platoon were in their own pods, falling through the atmosphere like meteors. 40 pods total in the first wave. 40 soldiers dropping into a city occupied by millions of hostile organisms. Minu had been a Terran shock trooper for 8 years. He had fought on mining colonies, against pirate raiders. He had cleared space stations infested with aggressive alien fauna. He had participated in rescue operations on worlds devastated by natural disasters, but this was different. This was a full-scale invasion force. The pod began to shake violently as it hit the atmosphere. The temperature inside spiked despite the cooling systems. Minu felt his stomach drop as the pod accelerated toward the surface. The inertial dampeners kept him from being crushed, but he could still feel every vibration, every shift in trajectory. 10 seconds through the viewport, he could see the landing zone. It was a large plaza in the center of the capital city, surrounded by tall buildings. Valrian soldiers had set up a defensive perimeter, but it was collapsing. Black waves of Skrull warriors were pouring over the barricades. 5 seconds. Minu gripped the release handle. The moment the pod hit the ground, he had to move fast. Speed was survival. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The pod hit like a bomb. The crash webbing held Minu in place as the armored shell plowed into the stone plaza, sending up a shower of debris. Before the pod even stopped moving, he pulled the release handle. Explosive. Bolts detonated with sharp cracks. The door of the pod blew outward and Minu was already moving. He came out of the pod in a crouch, rifle up, scanning for targets. The plaza was chaos. Valrian soldiers were falling back, firing their energy weapons at the advancing scrawl. The aliens were nightmare creatures. Black chitinous bodies with too many legs, mandibles dripping with digestive acid. They moved fast, scuttling over walls and rubble with terrifying speed. Minu's combat armor computer immediately tagged 47 hostile targets in his immediate vicinity. The armor itself was a marvel of human engineering. Powered exoskeleton covered in composite plate, sensor suite that could see in 12 different spectrums, and a heads-up display that fed him tactical data in real time. More pods were cratering into the plaza around him. His platoon was landing. Sound off. Manho barked into his communication system. Alpha Squad all present. Bravo Squad good to go. Charlie Squad we're up. Delta Squad ready to fight. 40 voices confirmed. Not a single casualty on landing. That was a good start. The scrawl noticed the new arrivals, a group of about 30 warriors, changed direction and charged toward Minu's position. They moved like a wave of black oil flowing over and around obstacles. Minu raised his rifle and started firing. The M77 was not an elegant weapon. It did not fire coherent beams of energy or plasma bolts. It was a simple chemical-propelled projectile weapon refined over centuries of human warfare. Each bullet was a small piece of depleted uranium traveling at supersonic speed. The first scrawl warrior took 3 rounds to the center mass and exploded into chunks of black chitin and yellow ichor. The second lost its head. The third had its legs blown off and collapsed, screeching around him. His platoon opened fire. The sound was incredible. 40 rifles firing on full automatic created a wall of noise that echoed off the buildings. Spent brass casings rained onto the ground like metal hail. The air filled with the smell of gunpowder and burning ozone. The scrawl charge broke. The aliens were used to energy weapons that could be dodged or absorbed. They were not prepared for a storm of metal moving faster than sound. Bodies piled up. Black wave faltered. Push forward. Minu ordered. Delta Squad establish a perimeter. Charlie Squad set up heavy weapons. Alpha and Bravo with me. Soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. Delta Squad spread out in a defensive circle covering all approaches. Charlie Squad began unpacking the heavy machine guns and ammunition from the drop pods. Minu led Alpha and Bravo squads toward the Valrian defensive line. The alien soldiers were staring at the humans in shock. They had been expecting defeat. Instead, they were watching a counterattack. A Valrian officer approached Minu. The alien was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes. He looked exhausted and terrified. "You are the humans?" the officer asked. In broken galactic standard. "Sergeant Minu Park, Terran Expeditionary Corps," Minu replied. "Where do you need us?" The officer pointed to the eastern side of the plaza. "They are breaking through there. We cannot hold them. Too many. They adapt too fast." Minu looked at the eastern barricade. It was collapsing under the weight of hundreds of scrawl warriors. The Valrian soldiers were firing their energy weapons, but the Scrawl were already developing. Reflective carapaces, the beams were becoming less effective with each passing minute. Fall back to the center, Minu told the officer. We'll handle the east, but there are hundreds of them. I know, Minu switched his communication to the platoon channel. All squads, we have a swarm breaking through on the eastern approach. Charlie, squad, get those machine guns operational. Everyone else form a firing line. We are going to show these bugs what happens when they mess with humans. The soldiers moved into position, 20 rifles, 2 heavy machine guns, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. The scrolls saw them and charged. Corporal Juan Choi was behind one of the heavy machine guns. Weapon was massive, mounted on a tripod, and fed by a belt of ammunition that could hold 3,000 rounds. She aimed at the approaching swarm and pressed the trigger. The machine gun roared to life. It fired 50 rounds per second, each bullet capable of punching through light armor. The effect on the scrawl was devastating. The front line of the swarm simply disintegrated, bodies torn apart by the relentless stream of fire. But the scrawl kept coming. They climbed over the bodies of their dead, mandibles clicking, acid dripping from their mouths. Behind them, more were emerging from the buildings. The swarm seemed endless. Switch to explosive rounds, Minu ordered. The soldiers quickly changed magazines. These rounds were different. Each bullet had a small explosive charge that detonated on impact. When they hit the scrawl, they did not just kill, they destroyed. The plaza became a meat grinder. Every second, dozens of scrawl died, but they kept coming, driven by instinct and hunger. The humans kept firing, calm and methodical. This was not their first battle. They knew how to maintain a firing line under pressure. Private Taeyang Shin moved to the front with his flamethrower. The weapon was a human classic, a tank of jellied fuel and a nozzle that could spray fire 30 m. He had been saving it for the right moment. Clear the front, he shouted. The rifles went silent for 3 seconds. Taeyang pulled the trigger and a stream of liquid fire shot out from his weapon. It splashed across the advancing scrawl like a wave of orange death. The aliens shrieked as they burned, their bodies writhing and collapsing. The smell was horrible, burning kitten and cooking alien flesh, but the psychological effect was immediate. The scroll charge wavered. Fire was something primal, something that triggered fear in almost every living creature. Keep it up, Minu shouted. Do not let them adapt. That was the key to fighting the scrawl. They could adapt to any single threat given time. But the humans were not using a single threat. They were using bullets, explosives, fire, and tactics all at once. The scrawl could not adapt fast enough. More drop pods began landing across the city. The second wave was arriving. 200 more soldiers along with heavy armor and artillery. Lieutenant Han Lee was coordinating from the command ship in orbit, directing the reinforcements to where they were needed most. A massive scrawl warrior 3 times the size of the regular drones emerged from a building. It had thick armor plates and moved with terrifying purpose. The Valrians called them Brood Lords, the commanders of the swarm. Minu saw it and immediately pulled a grenade from his belt. Frag out, he shouted, throwing the explosive device in a high arc. The grenade landed right in front of the Brood Lord and detonated. The explosion sent shrapnel flying in all directions. The giant scrawl Staggered but did not fall, hit it. Again, Minu ordered, 3 more. Grenades flew through the air, 3. More explosions, the brood lord. Collapsed, its armor shattered yellow. Blood pooling beneath its body, around. The plaza the Skrull swarm was beginning to break, the relentless human. Fire was taking its toll, the aliens were retreating into the buildings, leaving hundreds of dead behind. Minu checked his ammunition, half empty. Around him, his soldiers were reloading and checking their gear. They had been fighting for less than 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. The Velrian officer approached again, his eyes wide with disbelief. You stopped them. 40 soldiers stopped a swarm of thousands. Minu pulled off his helmet and wiped the sweat from his face. He was young, barely 25, with short black hair and tired eyes. We did not stop them, sir. We just showed them that this is going to be harder than they thought. He looked at the Velrian soldiers who were emerging from cover, staring at the piles of Skrull corpses and the human soldiers who had created them. This is just the beginning, Minu said quietly. Before we are done, they will wish they had never come to your world. Battle for Velria Prime entered its second day, and the Skrull were learning that humans did not fight like other species. Corporal Juan Choi crouched behind a ruined wall, her eyes on the tactical display built into her helmet. The map showed red dots everywhere, Skrull positions throughout the city, but the red was shrinking, slowly, steadily. The human forces were pushing them back. Her heavy weapon platform was set up on the 3rd floor of a damaged building. From this position, she had a clear view of 3 city blocks. Her weapon was not the machine gun she had used yesterday, that had run out of ammunition after killing over 2,000 Skrull. Now she had something bigger. The weapon was called a rotary cannon. It had 6 barrels that spun when firing, allowing it to shoot 6,000 rounds per minute. The ammunition was specially designed, depleted uranium cores with explosive tips. Each bullet could penetrate armor and then explode inside the target. Movement at grid Delta 7, her spotter said. Private Yunji was watching the sensors, tracking heat signatures and motion. Jiwon adjusted her aim. Through the scope she could see them, a group of about 50 Skrull warriors moving through the ruins. They were trying to flank the human position from the east. She activated her communication system. Command, this is Choi. I have visual on a flanking force requesting permission to engage. Permission granted, came the immediate reply. Light them up. Jiwon took a breath and squeezed the trigger. The rotary cannon came to life with a sound like thunder. The 6 barrels spun so fast they blurred. Bullets poured out in a continuous stream. The effect on the Skrull was total. The aliens did not stand a chance. Bodies exploded into fragments. The street became a cloud of yellow blood and black kitten. In 5 seconds, all 50 Skrull were dead. Jiwon released the trigger and checked her ammunition counter. She had used 300 rounds. She had 7,000 left. Target eliminated, she reported calmly. This was the pattern of the battle. The Skrull would try to advance. The humans would kill them. The Skrull would try a different approach. The humans would kill them again. It was methodical, efficient, and absolutely brutal. But the Skrull were beginning to adapt. That was their nature. They evolved to survive. The problem for them was that humans adapted faster. Lieutenant Hyan Lee stood in the mobile Command center, watching the battle unfold on multiple screens. He was tall and thin with sharp features and gray streaks in his black hair despite being only 35 years old. Combat aged you fast. Sir, we're detecting changes in the scroll biology, a technician reported. They are growing thicker armor plates. Our standard rounds are becoming less effective. Hyan nodded. He had expected this. Switch all units to armor-piercing incendiary rounds and deploy the thermite charges in sectors 4 through 7. Yes, sir. The beauty of human warfare was flexibility. Other species developed one type of weapon and refined it. Humans developed 1,000 types and used whatever worked. If bullets were not enough, they used explosives. If explosives were not enough, they used fire. If fire was not enough, they used chemicals. And if chemicals were not enough, they called in orbital strikes. Hun switched to the fleet channel. This is Lee. I need a kinetic strike on grid. Coordinates Sierra 93. Target is a scroll nest underneath the old factory district. The response came from orbit. Copy that, Lieutenant. Kinetic rod launching in 30 seconds. Clear a radius of 200 m. Han announced to all ground forces. All units pull back from sector Sierra 9. Orbital strike incoming. The soldiers withdrew quickly and efficiently. They knew what was coming. In orbit, a Terran warship aligned itself over the target coordinates. From its belly, a single metal rod was released. The rod was simple, just a solid piece of tungsten 3 m long and 30 cm thick. It had no explosives, no fuel, no guidance system beyond basic trajectory calculation, but it was dropping from orbit. Gravity did the rest. The rod accelerated as it fell, moving faster and faster until it was traveling at over 7 km/s. When it hit the ground, the kinetic energy was equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The impact was visible from space, a flash of light, then a massive explosion as the underground scroll nest was crushed and vaporized by the sheer force of the strike. The ground shook. Buildings 3 km away lost windows. High watched the aftermath on his screen. The thermal sensors showed nothing alive in the impact zone. Target destroyed. Resume advance. The ground forces moved forward again, reclaiming territory. Street by street, Private Taengshin was with the assault team, clearing the residential district. The buildings here were intact but infested. The scroll had nested in the basement and underground tunnels. Taeyang carried his flamethrower and had a grim smile on his face. This was his specialty: close quarters combat against entrenched enemies. The other soldiers called him the cleaner because he cleaned out nests that were too dangerous for conventional assault. His team consisted of 5 soldiers. They moved through the building carefully, checking each room. The scroll were smart enough to set ambushes. Contact, whispered Corporal Bora, who was on point. She raised her fist and everyone stopped. Tiang moved forward and looked where she was pointing. A hole in the floor about 2 meters wide. Black organic matter lined the edges. They could hear clicking sounds from below. Scroll communication nest. Taeyang confirmed. Probably 30 to 50 drones, maybe 1 brood lord. He pulled out a canister from his pack. It was filled with a special mixture, napalm gel mixed with white phosphorus. When it burned, it produced heat over 2000 degrees and could not be extinguished with water. Fire in the hole, he said, casually pulling the pin and dropping The canister into the hole, the team backed away. 3 seconds later, the building shook as the canister detonated. Fire roared up from the hole, along with the shrieking of dying Skrull. The heat was so intense that the floor began to melt. Tiang checked the hole with his thermal scope. Nothing was moving down there. Everything was ash. Clear, he reported, moving to the next building. This was how the humans fought, not with honor or elegance, but with practical brutality. Every weapon, every tactic was designed for one purpose: to kill the enemy as efficiently as possible. By the end of the second day, the Skrull had lost over 30% of their force on Valria Prime. The humans had lost 12 soldiers, but the battle was far from over. The Skrull were still adapting. On the third day, the aliens unveiled their counter strategy. They stopped attacking in large groups. Instead, they sent small teams of highly evolved warriors, faster, stronger, with acid that could melt through armor. Sergeant Minu Park encountered one of these new warriors while his squad was securing a communications tower. The creature was different from the regular drones. It was larger, with thicker armor and glowing yellow eyes that showed intelligence. It moved with disturbing speed, dodging the first burst of rifle fire. Its claws extended, each one dripping with acid that hissed when it hit the ground. Minu rolled to the side. As the creature lunged, its claws carved through the concrete where he had been standing. He came up firing, but his bullets sparked off its armor without penetrating. Armor too thick, he shouted to his squad. Aim for the joints. Private Suho fired a burst at the creature's leg joints. One bullet found a gap in the armor. The Skrull warrior stumbled, yellow blood leaking from the wound. That was all Minu needed. He pulled his combat knife and rushed forward. The blade was made of monomolecular carbon, sharp enough to cut through almost anything. He drove it into the gap in the creature's armor, right where the head met the body. The Skrull warrior thrashed for 3 seconds, then went still. Minu pulled his knife free and stepped back, breathing hard. They are getting smarter, Suho said. So are we, Minho replied. Call it in. All units need to know about these new variants. The information spread through the human force quickly. Within an hour, every soldier knew to aim for the joints and weak points. The Skrull's evolution was noted and countered, but the humans were evolving too, in their own way. Not biologically, but tactically. Captain Hanukwen stood on a rooftop, overlooking the battlefield, watching her soldiers work. She had been a soldier for 15 years and had seen combat on a dozen worlds, but this was different. This was the first time humanity was facing a true threat to another species, and the galaxy was watching. Her communication system beeped. It was Ambassador Keeltus. Captain Quan, the Council wishes to know your progress. We have reclaimed 40% of the capital city, Hana reported. Casualties are minimal. The Skrull are adapting, but so are we. We estimate another 3 days to complete liberation of Valria Prime. There was a pause. Captain, our military analysts are reviewing your combat footage. They are disturbed by your methods, the level of destruction, the brutality of the weapons you employ. Hana looked at the burning buildings, the streets covered in Skrull corpses. She knew what the Valrians were thinking. They were thinking that humans were monsters. Maybe they were right, Ambassador, she said quietly. War is not beautiful. It is not elegant. It is killing and dying until one side cannot continue. My soldiers are good at killing, that is why you called us. I understand, but the scroll do not negotiate, Hana interrupted. They do not surrender, they consume or they die. We are giving them death. If that disturbs you, I apologize, but I will not change my methods, not when they are working. Another pause, then Keltis said, I understand, Captain. Continue your operations and thank you. My people are alive because of yours. Hana ended the call and returned to watching the battle below her. A squad was using flamethrowers to clear a scrawl nest. Fire lit up the night and the screams of dying aliens echoed through the streets. She did not enjoy this. No good soldier enjoyed killing, but she was effective at it, and right now that was all that mattered. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to become something the monster feared, and the scroll were beginning to fear. The scroll were broken on Velria Prime by the end of the 5th day. The last nest was destroyed by orbital bombardment and the city was secure. But the cost of victory was visible. Everywhere, Ambassador Keltis walked through the streets with Captain Hanuquan surveying the damage. The elegant buildings were scorched and pitted with bullet holes. The streets were stained with the yellow blood of thousands of Skrull corpses. Human soldiers were using heavy machinery to push the alien bodies into massive piles for incineration. This was our most beautiful city, Keltis said softly. 5,000 years of culture and art. It can be rebuilt, Hana replied. If the Skrull had won, there would be nothing left to rebuild. They would have consumed everything. Your buildings, your people, your entire civilization. Keltis knew she was right, but it still hurt to see his world like this. They passed a group of human soldiers sitting on rubble, eating from metal containers and drinking water. Their armor was covered in scorch marks and dried blood. They looked exhausted but alert. One of them saw Hana and stood saluting. The others followed. At ease, Hana said, how are you holding up, Corporal? Ready for the next fight? Ma'am, the soldier replied. It was Jiwan Choi, the heavy weapons specialist. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat. Get some rest, Hana ordered. We move on the colony worlds in 2 days. As they walked away, Keltis said, your soldiers show no fear. How do you train them to be so calm in the face of such danger? Hana was quiet for a moment, then said, we do not train fear out of them. Ambassador, fear is natural and useful. It keeps you alert. We train them to function despite their fear. We train them to trust their weapons, their armor, and most importantly, each other. They arrived at the human command post, a temporary structure set up in what used to be a Velrian government building. Inside, Lieutenant Hyan Lee was coordinating supply shipments and troop rotations. Captain, he said when he saw them, we have a situation. Hana moved to the tactical display. Report, we captured a Skrull brood lord. Alive, medical team has it contained in a quarantine unit. I thought you should. No, Keltis was shocked. You captured one alive. Why? To understand them, Hana explained. The Skrull adapt quickly because they share information across the swarm. If we can study one, we can learn how they communicate, how they evolve, how they think. That information will save lives when we attack the colony worlds. I want to see it, Keltis said. Hana led him to the medical unit, a sealed section of the building with heavy Security, inside behind thick, transparent metal, was the Brood Lord. It was massive, nearly 3 m tall, with black armor plates covering its body. Its mandibles clicked constantly, and its multiple eyes tracked every movement. In the room, even contained, it radiated menace. A human doctor stood nearby, reviewing data on a tablet. Her name was Dr. Narration, and she was the team's xenobiologist. "What have you learned?" Hana asked. "Fascinating organism," Nari replied, her eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "The Skrull are not just insects, they have a distributed intelligence network. Each individual is relatively simple, but when they connect through pheromones and biological signals, they form a collective intelligence that is quite sophisticated." She pointed to the display showing the Brood Lord's brain activity. "This one is a node in that network, a coordinator. It can process information from hundreds of drones and direct them in complex tactical maneuvers. But here is the interesting part. The network has a limit. If you kill enough nodes, the rest of the swarm becomes disorganized. They revert to simple instincts." "How many nodes do we need to eliminate?" Hana asked. "Our analysis suggests approximately 70% of the Brood Lords on each world. Once you reach that threshold, the remaining Skrull will lose cohesion and can be eliminated more easily." Keyless stared at the creature behind the glass. "You are going to use this information to kill them more efficiently?" "Yes," Hana said simply. "That is what we do, Ambassador. We study our enemies and find their weaknesses. The Skrull are adaptable, but they are not invincible. Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it and exploit it." The Brood Lord suddenly slammed its claws against the glass, creating a sound like thunder. Keylethus jumped back, but Hana did not flinch. "It knows we are talking about it," Nari said. "They are more intelligent than most people realize. That makes them dangerous, but it also makes them predictable. Intelligence follows patterns." Hana made a decision. "Send the full analysis to all unit commanders when we assault the colony. World's Brood Lords are priority targets. I want sniper teams assigned to hunt them specifically." "Yes, ma'am," Hun confirmed. Keyless followed Hana back to the command center. He had questions that had been bothering him since the humans arrived. "Captain Quan," he said, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course. How did your people become so good at war?" "You told me Earth has been at peace for decades, yet your soldiers fight like they have been doing this their entire lives." Hana sat down at a table and gestured for Keyless to join her. She pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. "This is our world," she said. "It looks peaceful from space. Beautiful blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. But Earth is not a gentle place, Ambassador. It never has been." She expanded the image to show the surface. "Humans evolved in Africa, surrounded by predators that wanted to eat us. We were not the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being smart and working together. We learned to make tools, first stones, then spears, then bows, then guns." The image shifted, showing historical footage of human conflicts. "For 200,000 years we fought. We fought animals, we fought nature, and most of all, we fought each other. Tribes against tribes, kingdoms against kingdoms, nations against nations. We created weapons that could kill from kilometers away. We split atoms to make bombs that could destroy entire cities. Keltis watched the images in horror. Cities burning, millions dying, wars. That lasted years. We almost destroyed ourselves, Hana. Continued several times, but we did. Not we learned, we grew, we finally achieved peace about 70 years ago after our last major war, but the knowledge did not disappear, the skills did not vanish. We still train our soldiers in all the methods of warfare that our ancestors developed. She closed the hologram. Every human soldier knows the history of war. We study the great battles, the successful tactics, the mistakes that cost lives. We learn from thousands of years of human conflict. That is why we are effective, not because we love war, but because we understand it completely. Do you regret it? Keltis asked. All that history of violence, Hana thought about it sometimes, but I also know that without that history, we would not be here helping you. Our violent past taught us how to survive, how to adapt, how to win against impossible odds. Skrull would have destroyed your people. Now they will not, because humans learned long ago how to be very, very good at killing. She stood up. I need to prepare for the colony operations. We leave in 2 days. I suggest you prepare your people for what comes next. It will be worse than what happened here. As Kellis left the command center, he passed a group of human soldiers who were cleaning their weapons and checking their equipment. One of them was singing quietly a sad song in their own language. The others listened in silence. These humans were strange creatures. Keyless thought. They fought with brutal efficiency, yet they showed compassion. To civilians, they used terrible weapons, yet they laughed and sang. Between battles, they were young as a species, barely out of their own solar system, yet they fought like ancient warriors. He found himself grateful that they were allies and not enemies. 2 days later, the human fleet assembled in orbit around Velria Prime. 8 troop carriers, 12 support ships, and 6 heavy cruisers. The entire battalion was preparing to deploy to the 3 occupied colony worlds. In the command ship, Hana addressed her soldiers through the communication system. 800 faces looked at her from screens throughout the fleet. I know you are tired, she said. I know some of you are injured. I know you have seen things that will stay with you for the rest of your lives, but we have a job to finish. 3 colony worlds are still under Skrull occupation. Millions of Velrian civilians are trapped, hiding, waiting for rescue. We are going to get them. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Skrull thought they could consume this sector of space without consequence. They were wrong. We are the consequence. We are the price they pay for aggression. We are humanity, and we do not let monsters win. Not today. Not ever. The soldiers responded with a unified shout, not a cheer but a battle cry, short, sharp, and full of purpose. Hana ended the transmission and looked at Hune, who was standing nearby. Do you think we can do it? He asked. 3 worlds, billions of Skrull. We do not have a choice, Hana replied. We told them we would help, so we will, and when we are done, the galaxy will know one thing for certain. And GT clears throat. And GT, what is that? She smiled grimly. That when you need someone to walk through hell and come out the other side, you call the humans. The fleet engaged there faster than light drives and disappeared from Velrian space, heading for the occupied colonies and the battles that waited there. 3 months later, the war was over the Galactic Council chamber on the neutral station of Concordia was filled to capacity. Representatives from 40 species sat in the tiered seats, all watching the center floor where Captain Hanuquen stood. She was still in her combat uniform, having arrived directly from the front lines. Her armor was cleaned, but showed the scars of battle, burn marks, scratches, dents from near misses. The council speaker, a tall being with crystalline skin named Vorath, addressed the assembly. We have gathered today to discuss the recent military action in Valrian space and the implications for the galactic community. Captain Quan, you will present your report. Hana activated a holographic display. It showed the 3 Valrian colony worlds, Velria 2, Velria 3, and Velria 4. When the scroll had occupied them 3 months ago, they had been covered in black infestation. The current images showed clean worlds with cities being rebuilt and populations recovering. The scroll occupation of Velrian space has been ended. Hana reported all 3 colony worlds have been liberated. The Skrull swarm has been eliminated, with total casualties estimated at 3.7 billion organisms. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. 3.7 billion killed in 3 months. Human casualties, Vorath asked. 247 soldiers killed in action, 412 wounded, of which 309 have returned to duty. The numbers were incomprehensible to the council. Less than 300 dead to kill billions of enemies. It was either the most brilliant military operation in galactic history or the most terrifying. A representative from the Thax Federation stood. Captain Quan, we have reviewed the combat footage from your operations. The level of destruction employed by human forces is extreme. Entire city districts were burned. Orbital bombardment was used extensively. Chemical weapons were deployed. Are these tactics not excessive? Hana met the representative's eyes. The Skrull are a consume or die organism. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, and they do not surrender. To defeat them required total elimination. Yes, we used every weapon at our disposal. Yes, we caused significant damage to Valrian infrastructure, but the alternative was the complete extinction of the Valrian species. Another representative, this one from the Silicate Collective, spoke up. But surely there were more elegant solutions, more civilized approaches. Your methods seem barbaric. Before Hana could respond, a door to the chamber opened. Ambassador Keeltis entered, followed by General Thax and a delegation of Velrian officials. They were not scheduled to speak, but Vora allowed them to approach. I would like to address that comment, Keltis said. He stood at the center floor near Hana. The Silicate Collective calls human methods barbaric. I understand why. Watching humans fight is disturbing. It is violent and brutal and unlike anything we consider civilized warfare. He turned to face the full council. But I will tell you what is truly barbaric. Barbaric is watching your people be consumed by an alien swarm while the galaxy does nothing. Barbaric is sending distress calls to 40 species and receiving 40 refusals. Barbaric is standing on your home world as it burns, knowing you are alone. His voice grew stronger. The humans came when no one else would. They fought when everyone else was too afraid. Yes, their methods are brutal, but they work. My people are alive because of their brutality. 3 colony worlds are free. Because humans were willing to do what others would not. General Thax stepped forward. I'm a military commander. I have fought in wars for 50 years. I thought I understood combat. Then I watched Sergeant Minu Park and his platoon hold a city plaza against 10,000. Scroll, I watched Corporal Juin Choi destroy an entire swarm advance with one weapon. I watched Lieutenant Hyan Lee coordinate an orbital strike so precisely that it eliminated a Skrull nest without damaging the civilian shelter 30 m away. He looked directly at the Silicute representative. You call them barbaric. I call them the most effective soldiers I have ever seen. They are not wasteful with violence. Every shot has a purpose. Every tactic is calculated. They fight with brutal efficiency, yes, but also with discipline and control that many species would envy. A new voice spoke from the upper tiers. But what about the cost? The psychological impact on your people? A Valrian civilian stepped forward from the delegation. She was elderly with scars on her face. My name is Isol. I am a survivor from Velria Thur. I was trapped in the tunnels beneath my city for 2 months while the scroll controlled the surface. We had no food, no water. We thought we would die there. Her voice was strong despite her age. Then we heard explosions, gunfire, the sounds of battle. A human soldier, Private Taeyang Shin, found us. He was covered in Skrull blood and carrying a weapon that shot fire. He looked terrifying, but he smiled at us and said, "It's okay now. We're here to take you home." Tears ran down her face. He and his team escorted 300 of us through tunnels filled with Skrull warriors. They fought the entire way. 5 soldiers protecting 300 civilians, and they got us all out alive. That is the psychological impact. Council member, my people sleep peacefully now, knowing that if danger comes again, humans will answer the call. The council chamber was silent. Vorath finally spoke. Captain Quan, there are concerns about humanity's military capabilities. Some species believe you should be restricted, regulated, prevented from deploying such overwhelming force in the future. Hana had expected this. She had prepared her response carefully. I understand the concern, she said calmly. Humanity is new to the galactic stage. We are young, aggressive, and our technology is focused heavily on warfare. That makes us frightening to species who value peace and civilization. I do not blame anyone for being afraid. She walked to the center of the floor, her boots echoing in the quiet chamber. But I want to tell you what humanity values. We value freedom. We value the right of all sapient beings to exist without fear. When the Valrians called for help, we did not ask what we would gain. We did not demand payment or territory. We came because it was the right thing to do. She activated another image, this one showing human soldiers, Minu and his platoon standing in front of a liberated Valrian school. Juin helping rebuild a damaged hospital. Tiang distributing food to refugees. These were not images of warriors, but of helpers. My soldiers are not monsters, Hana said. They are people. They have families. They have dreams. They chose to become soldiers to protect others. Yes, they are very good at killing, but that is not all they are. They are also good at saving. Major Doyen Bay stepped forward from where he had been standing at the back of the chamber. He was one of the battalion's senior officers with gray hair and tired eyes. I lost 12 soldiers under my command this war, he said quietly. Sergeant. Junho Kim died holding a door closed so civilians could escape through another exit. The Skrull were breaking through, and he knew he would not survive, but he held that door for 4 minutes, long enough. His voice wavered slightly. Corporal Samihan was in a collapsed tunnel with 30 Valrian children. Her air supply was failing. She could have left them and saved herself. Instead, she gave her oxygen tank to the children and held the collapse until rescue teams arrived. She died doing it. Doyen looked at the council. These are the soldiers you want to regulate. These are the humans you fear. Yes, we are good at war, but we are also good at sacrifice. We are good at compassion. We are good at doing what needs to be done, even when it costs us everything. Another species representative stood. This one from the Crearmony. But what if humanity turns that capability against the rest of us? What if you decide to conquer rather than protect? Hana turned to face the speaker. Then you stop us. You are 40 species with thousands of years of history and technology. If humanity ever becomes a threat to the galaxy, I expect the Council to do exactly what we did for the Valrians. Come together and fight. That is what the Council is for. She paused. But I will tell you this, my people have no interest in conquest. We spent too many years fighting each other to want to fight you. We joined the Galactic Council because we wanted to be part of something larger than ourselves. We want to learn from you, trade with you, grow with you, and yes, if needed, protect you. Voreth called for a vote. The proposal is to establish restrictions on Terran military deployment, requiring Council approval for any action involving more than 100 soldiers or the use of weapons of mass destruction. All in favor. Keelis stood. Immediately, the Velrian Empire votes against this proposal. One by one, other representatives stood. Species that had witnessed the reports, that had seen the footage, that had heard the testimonies. The final vote was 28 against 12 in favor. The proposal failed. Instead, a counter proposal was made by the Velrian delegation, full military alliance with Terra, with humanity designated as the Council's rapid response force for extinction-level threats. This vote passed 35-5. As the Council session ended, representatives approached Hana. Some thanked her, some asked about establishing their own defensive treaties, some simply wanted to shake her hand, a human gesture that was spreading through the galaxy. Ambassador Keltis found her on the observation deck later, looking out at the stars. You did well in there, he said. I told the truth, Hana replied. That is all I could do. The galaxy sees humanity differently now. You have proven yourselves as warriors and as protectors. That is a powerful combination. Hana smiled slightly. We just did what humans do best, adapt and overcome. The Skrull were a challenge. We met it. If another challenge comes, we will meet that too. She looked at Kellis. Your people are rebuilding. That is good, but you should also start training your own soldiers in human tactics, not to become like us, but to be ready. The galaxy is dangerous, Ambassador. The Skrull will not be the last threat. Will you teach us? If you want to learn, we will teach you. Back on Earth, the news of the Velrian campaign spread quickly. Sergeant Minu Park returned home to find himself celebrated as a hero. He did not feel like one. He felt like a soldier who had done his job. Corporal Jiwon Choi was promoted and assigned to trained new heavy weapons specialists. She taught them not just how to shoot, but when to shoot and why it mattered. Private Taeyang Shin received a medal from the Velrian government for his rescue operations. He put it in a box and never looked at it again. The nightmares were enough of a reminder. Lieutenant Yan Li was promoted to captain and given command of his own battalion. He vowed to lead them as well as Hana had led him. And Captain Hana Quan, after submitting her final report, took a month of leave. She went to a quiet place in the mountains where she could think and remember. She remembered the soldiers she had lost. She remembered the victories and the costs. She remembered why she had become a soldier in the first place, to protect those who could not protect themselves. One evening she received a message. It was from a young Velrian, the child of one of the civilians her soldiers had saved. The message was simple. Thank you for saving my family. When I grow up, I want to be brave like humans. Hana read it 3 times, then saved it to her personal files. These were the moments that mattered, not the battles won or the enemies defeated, but the lives saved and the future protected. Humanity had walked through fire and smoke to answer a desperate call. The galaxy had watched in fear and wonder. And now they knew when darkness came, when extinction threatened, when all hope seemed lost, there was one species that would come running. The humans would answer, and they would win, no matter the cost.